Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're pulling back the curtain on something really fascinating, maybe even a bit perplexing, happening right now at, well, one of the biggest names in tech.
Yeah, a company that literally just hit its 50-year mark. An incredible milestone.
Exactly, 50 years. But, and this is the paradox, right? At the same time, they're celebrating, they're making these pretty dramatic strategic shifts. It's caught our attention, and we've been trying to really dig into what's going on.
It's a huge shift, definitely. And the timing, like you said, it's just striking. So July 2nd, 2025, that's when Microsoft announced this latest significant wave of layoffs. About 9,000 employees affected.
9,000, and that's not even the whole picture for this year, is it?
No, not at all. This actually follows another round back in May 2025. That was 6,000 positions cut then.
So carry the one.
Hmm.
That's 15,000 jobs impacted just in 2025 so far. 15,000.
It's a staggering number.
It really makes you stop and think, especially with the 50th anniversary backdrop. I mean,
All right.
5 decades building this giant, and now this.
Right. And just for context, because these numbers can sound abstract, that latest 9,000 is actually less than 4% of their global workforce. They had, what, 228,000 employees back in June 2024?
Still, less than 4% sounds small, but 9,000 people. And when you add the May cuts, that 15,000 total, that's suddenly roughly 6.5% of their whole workforce this year. That's not just trimming the edges.
No, it feels more like a significant reshaping, a fundamental change.
And, it's obviously more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are people, families.
Absolutely. And that's really our mission today, isn't it? To go beyond just the headlines, beyond the corporate statements. We want to understand the underlying currents here. What's driving this at Microsoft? What does it signal about the wider tech landscape?
And definitely the human stories caught in the middle of all this. We want to help you, our listeners, sort of connect the dots, figure out what this might mean for, well, the future of work, innovation, really for all of us.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with the official line. Microsoft says they're implementing organizational changes necessary to best position the company for success in a dynamic marketplace.
Standard stuff, right? But what are we really seeing behind that corporate speak? What are the actual drivers?
Well, digging into it, one theme comes through pretty clearly.
Mm.
Streamlining. Specifically, a real effort to reduce layers of middle management.
Ah, the middle management layer. We hear about this a lot.
Yeah, and the thinking is pretty straightforward. Too many layers can just slow everything down. More bureaucracy, higher costs, less agility.
Right, it's like trying to turn a giant oil tanker versus a speedboat. They want to be the speedboat. Or maybe the cheetah analogy I saw. Less sluggish sloth, more cheetah.
Exactly. More agile, more efficient. And look, this isn't just a Microsoft thing either. We've seen other big players like Amazon talk very openly about tackling, quote, unnecessary layers in their own structures. It seems like a growing pain for these massive tech companies. So efficiency, agility, that makes sense. But is that the whole story? Or is there something bigger pushing this?
Well, there's definitely something bigger. If there's one sort of overwhelming force here, it's artificial intelligence, AI. Microsoft is making an absolutely massive strategic pivot towards it.
Massive feels like an understatement sometimes when you look at the numbers.
It really does. I mean, think about their partnership with OpenAI. That's hit, what, $13 billion by 2025?
13 billion. And then there's the projection for their own AI investment in fiscal 2025.
Right, an eye-watering $80 billion.
$80 billion. That's
Right.
wow. That's not just dabbling. That's betting the farm.
It's absolutely betting the farm. They're weaving AI into everything. It's going into Bing. It's deeply integrated into Office with things like Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's not just a feature. It's becoming fundamental to how their core products operate.
It's like that kale analogy someone used. Shifting the entire grocery budget to kale because you believe it's the absolute future of food, even if you cut back on, bread and milk.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's this huge reallocation of resources towards what they see as the future. A massive bet that, well, it needs funding.
And that funding has to come from somewhere, right? Which brings us back to the layoffs.
Exactly. And some analysts are actually suggesting that this isn't just a one-off adjustment. They're floating the idea that Microsoft might need to consistently cut jobs, maybe around 10,000 per year.
10,000 a year just to keep profit margins up while pouring all this money into AI?
That's the speculation. To fuel these immense AI investments and keep shareholders happy. Satya Nadella, the CEO, he's framed these moves as repositioning for future growth, not about, poor performance. But it suggests a potentially permanent shift in how they operate.
Wow. Okay, so 10,000 jobs annually. That's not just trimming fat. That's That's building workforce reduction into the ongoing business model to fund AI. Is that really the takeaway here?
I think that's a crucial insight, yes. For companies making these huge AI bets, AI isn't just a product anymore. It's becoming a massive ongoing cost. Think about it, $80 billion a year. To sustain that and deliver profit growth.
The old ways of staffing might just not work anymore, especially in areas that can be streamlined or potentially automated down the line.
Precisely. It suggests this isn't just a correction after pandemic hiring or something. It could be a fundamental, continuous recalibration of the human workforce needed alongside this massive AI infrastructure push. That's pretty profound for anyone in the tech sector, or really any sector AI touches.
It really is. And while we're talking strategy and billions, we absolutely have to bring it back to the people. Because for those 9,000 folks in this latest round and the 15,000 total this year, this is huge. It's life-changing.
Absolutely devastating in many cases. Losing your job, especially in tech right now, which is still competitive despite these cuts. Thinking about your family, the bills. It's incredibly tough. Often it happens very suddenly, too.
And the support they get. Seems like a bit of a mixed bag, doesn't it? Microsoft does have a history of severance packages. I remember seeing that $1.2 billion charge they took for severance costs back in 2023.
They do. But what seems complicated now, and maybe a bit inconsistent, are the details. We're hearing reports, for instance, that some terminations labeled as performance-based might not come with severance at all.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So, potentially immediate loss of access, no benefits package to tide you over. That feels incredibly harsh, like the Band-Aid for a broken heart description someone used. It highlights that not everyone leaving might be getting the same support.
Right. And then you have geographical differences. Someone laid off in, say, Denmark might have specific legal entitlements, like a 6-month notice period, that someone in the U.S. wouldn't have.
So the experience itself can be vastly different depending on where you happen to work for them globally. Adds another layer of complexity for sure. And we're seeing the reactions play out online, obviously, at places like X, formerly
Yeah.
Twitter. It's this real mix of emotions, isn't it?
It really is. You see people sharing their stories. Someone might post something like, after 15 years here, I was let go today. Bittersweet, grateful for the ride, excited for what's next. That kind of resilience.
Yeah, I saw that one. Amazing attitude, really.
But then you also see others expressing frustration or maybe a more pragmatic view, like, layoffs are tough, but I trust the company's making long-term decisions.
It just underscores that behind every single one of those 9,000 or 15,000 numbers, there's a real person, a unique story, a lot of uncertainty, maybe some hope, too.
Definitely. Each one is a personal narrative.
Thinking about this, there's a certain almost sad irony here. A company pushing AI forward so aggressively is laying off humans.
Right. Now, it's not like the AI is directly doing the laying off or even taking these specific jobs right now. You just
Yeah.
need tons of humans to train AI, refine it, make sure it's ethical, stop it from, you know,
Going full Skynet.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But it definitely throws into sharp relief this complicated dance that's happening between automation and human roles across the whole industry, which kind of brings us to the bigger picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because these Microsoft layoffs, as big as they aren't happening in a vacuum.
Not at all. This is part of a much bigger ongoing wave washing over the entire tech sector. It's not just a Microsoft story. It's really an industry-wide transformation playing out.
Yeah, the numbers are kind of mind-boggling when you zoom out. We saw Amazon cut, 18,000 jobs in 2023? Meta let go of 11,000 around then, too.
And Layoffs.fyi, which tracks this stuff, reported over 240,000 tech job cuts in 2024 alone.
240,000.
And we're already past 22,000 just in the first part of 2025. February 2025 itself saw over 16,000 cuts across the industry. It's relentless.
And it's not just the absolute giants either, right? We've seen other companies, maybe slightly smaller, but still significant players.
Right? Like Autodesk, CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
They've also been streamlining, making similar tough calls.
Yeah.
It all ties back to this mix of, well, economic uncertainty, inflation sticking around, and maybe most importantly, this huge industry-wide pivot towards AI and needing to be hyper-efficient.
I saw one analyst, Gil Luria, telling Reuters that these big AI investments might actually mean ongoing layoffs across tech, that Microsoft's moves are just part of a pattern that could redefine the workforce for years.
That seems increasingly likely. It's a structural shift.
So let's talk about that. The future of work in this AI era we're clearly entering. It's not just jobs disappearing, is it? There's also talk of new roles being created.
Definitely. It's a dual narrative. Microsoft itself says it plans to hire in strategic AI areas, even while it's cutting elsewhere. So yes, some roles vanish, but new ones should emerge.
But the big question is, how fast will those new roles appear? And will the people losing jobs today have the right skills for those new AI-focused roles tomorrow? That sounds like a massive reskilling challenge.
It puts reskilling and continuous learning front and center. Absolutely. You look at projections, like from McKinsey, suggesting maybe up to 30% of work hours could be automated by 2030.
30% of hours. That's huge. It forces you to think, okay, what work will be left for humans? And what skills will be most valuable?
It really does. The implication is that if machines handle more of the routine, the predictable tasks, then the uniquely human skills become even more critical.
Like what specifically, if you're listening to this, what should you be focusing on?
Well, based on what we're seeing and analyzing, things like complex problem solving, dealing with ambiguity, emotional intelligence, collaboration, critical thinking, and maybe above all, creativity and innovation. Things AI isn't good at or can't do at all.
So it's about working with AI, complementing it, not competing with it on tasks it can do faster or cheaper.
Exactly. Using AI as a tool, a co-pilot, like Microsoft calls its own product,
Oh.
it's less about displacement, potentially, and more about a massive redefinition of what humans contribute, what our value is in the workplace, which, opens up big societal questions about education, lifelong learning.
Absolutely. How do we prepare people for that future? It requires a shift in thinking.
It really does. The ability to guide AI, interpret its output, ask the right questions, and bring that human layer of empathy, strategy, ethical judgment. That's likely where the value will increasingly lie.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've journeyed through Microsoft's big AI gamble, the drive for efficiency, the very real human consequences, and how this all fits into a much bigger industry shift.
Yeah, hopefully giving you a clearer picture of the forces reshaping tech right now.
And understanding these dynamics, it's not just about knowing what's happening at Microsoft. It helps all of us get a sense of where the tech world is heading, and honestly, how the nature of work itself is changing pretty rapidly.
It's definitely a story of constant adaptation. Even a 50-year-old giant has to reinvent itself, make these tough calls to stay ahead. It really hammers home that adaptability isn't just, a nice-to-have skill anymore. It's becoming essential for survival, professionally speaking.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. If Microsoft, celebrating 50 years, is making such drastic changes for an AI future, what does that signal about the pace of change the rest of us need to embrace, both as individuals in our careers and maybe as a whole society?
And perhaps what parts of being human, our creativity, our empathy, our ability to connect become even more valuable when machines take over more of the routine. Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.